I woke up and found a Apache woman in my room, she said. I'm just staying here for one night. He had never expected something like this to happen. It was an ordinary morning just like any other. The sun was shining softly through the thin curtains of his small room. The air smelled fresh, carrying the gentle scent of flowers blooming outside his window. He stretched his arms and slowly opened his eyes, ready to start a normal day. But as he blinked away sleep, something caught his attention, something that didn't belong. Sitting quietly by the edge of his bed was a woman. Not just any woman, but someone who looked completely out of place. She was dressed in traditional clothing, something he had only seen in books or documentaries about Native American culture. Her dark hair was braided carefully, and her eyes held a calm strength that seemed to belong to another world. She looked at him with calm curiosity and said softly, "I'm just staying here for one night." For a moment he thought he must still be dreaming, or maybe had woken up too early. Maybe this was some strange trick his mind was playing. But no, she was real, sitting right there in his room. How she'd got there he had no idea. But there she was, peaceful and sure, as if she belonged there even though everything about her was so different from his own life. He rubbed his eyes and sat up straighter, trying to make sense of the situation. "Who are you?" he finally asked, his voice still thick with sleep. "And how did you get into my room?" The woman smiled gently but didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked around the small room, taking in every detail like it was a new place for her, too. After a moment, she said, "My name is Nayeli. I am Apache." The word felt important when she said it, as if it held a deep meaning that stretched far beyond just a name. He didn't know much about the Apache people. He had heard the name before, in stories and history lessons, but never met anyone from that background. Now, here she was, sitting calmly on the edge of his bed, and somehow, it didn't feel strange anymore. Instead, there was a quiet kindness in her eyes that made him want to listen. "Why are you here?" he asked again, feeling a mix of curiosity and concern. "And why my room?" Nayeli's gaze softened. "I needed a place to rest," she said simply. "Just for one night. I promise I won't cause any trouble." The way she spoke made him believe her. There was no hint of fear or danger in her voice, only honesty and calm. It was strange how quickly he felt a sense of trust, even though he had no idea who she really was or where she had come from. He looked around the room, suddenly noticing how small and simple it was. A bed, a desk with a few books, a window looking out onto the street below. Nothing fancy, but it was home. And now, it was a temporary shelter for this quiet, mysterious woman who had just appeared out of nowhere. He reached out and offered her a glass of water from the table nearby. Nayeli accepted it with a gentle nod, her fingers brushing lightly against his as she took the glass. The contact was brief but warm, like a silent promise that everything would be okay. "Do you want to tell me more about yourself?" he asked, feeling an unexpected desire to learn about this stranger who had entered his life so suddenly. Nayeli looked at him thoughtfully, then nodded. "I will tell you what I can," she said, "but some things are not easy to explain. Not in just one night." He smiled, understanding that her story might be long and complicated. But he was ready to listen. He didn't know what the future held, but he felt that this night was going to change everything. As the morning light grew brighter, they sat together quietly, sharing a space that was once just his room, but now felt like something more. Nayeli told him about her homeland, a place filled with wide-open skies and ancient mountains. She spoke of her people's traditions, their respect for nature, and the stories passed down through generations. He listened with wide eyes, fascinated by the world she described, a world so different from the one he knew. It was like hearing about a secret place hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. Her words painted pictures of ceremonies under the stars, songs sung around fires, and the deep connection her people had with the land. Sometimes she paused and looked out the window, her expression distant, as if she could see the mountains she missed even from so far away. He realized that this night wasn't just about resting. It was a moment of refuge, a break from a journey that had been long and hard. The hours passed quietly. Neither of them felt the need to fill the silence with small talk. The room was filled with a gentle stillness, a feeling of two strangers sharing a fragile moment of peace. Before long, the day began to move on. The sounds of the city outside became louder, people going about their busy lives. But inside that small room, time seemed to slow down. He found himself thinking about how unexpected life could be. One moment, everything feels normal and safe. The next, someone appears who changes the entire course of your day, your thoughts, your heart. Nayeli smiled again, this time more softly. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said quietly. "I know this must be strange for you." "It is," he admitted, "but in a good way. I feel like there's something important about tonight, something I don't fully understand yet." She nodded, her eyes shining with quiet understanding. "Sometimes life brings people together in the most unexpected ways," she said, "for one night, or maybe longer." As the afternoon light filtered through the curtains, the man realized he wasn't just sharing his room. He was sharing a moment in time with someone whose life was so different, yet somehow connected to his own in a way he couldn't explain. That night, when he finally lay back down to rest, he thought about Nayeli and the story she had just begun to tell. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he was no longer alone in his world. And for the first time in a long while, he felt a quiet hope. The hope that sometimes strangers can bring new meaning to our lives, even if only for a single night. After the quiet morning, the man and Nayeli slowly began to talk more. The room, once strange and unfamiliar, started to feel like a place where two very different lives could meet. Nayeli, the Apache woman, sat calmly on the edge of the bed, and the man listened carefully to every word she shared. She began to tell him about where she came from, a land far away from the busy city streets outside his window. "My home is a place with big, open skies," she said softly. "There are tall mountains that touch the clouds and wide rivers that run through the valleys. The trees are tall and strong, and the wind carries the stories of my people." Her voice held a quiet pride, but also a touch of sadness. The man could almost see it all in his mind. The blue sky stretching far and wide, the green trees swaying gently, and the sound of water flowing peacefully. He had never been anywhere like that. His world was filled with buildings, cars, and the noise of city life. But through her words, he felt a small glimpse of the beautiful, calm place she came from. Nayeli spoke about her people, the Apache, and their long history. "We have lived on this land for many, many years," she explained. "Our elders tell us stories about our ancestors and how they learned to live in harmony with nature. We believe the earth is alive, and that every river, mountain, and tree has a spirit. We honor these spirits and try to protect the land for the future." Her eyes shone as she spoke about the traditions that shaped her life. The man felt amazed by her respect for the natural world. He had grown up in a city where most people did not think much about nature beyond parks or gardens, but Nayeli's connection to the earth seemed deep and real, like it was part of who she was. She told him about the ceremonies her people held. Celebrations of the changing seasons, prayers for good harvests, and dances that told the stories of their ancestors. "At night we gather around fires, sing songs, and share our history," she said with a gentle smile. "It brings us closer together and reminds us of where we come from." As she spoke, the man noticed how calm and peaceful Nayeli seemed. It was as if these memories gave her strength and hope, even in times when life was hard. He wanted to know more, but he also understood that some things might be difficult to share. After a pause, Nayeli's voice grew softer. "I left home because I needed to find safety," she said quietly. "There were problems that I could not face there, but I carry my people with me in my heart, and I hope to return one day." She looked out the window, as if searching for a place she could not see. The man felt a sudden wave of sympathy. He could imagine how hard it must be to leave behind everything familiar, your home, your family, your traditions, to step into a world full of unknowns. He wanted to help, but he didn't know how. "Will you tell me what kind of problems?" he asked gently, careful not to push her too much. Nayeli shook her head slowly. Ah, some stories are for another time, she said with a soft smile. Tonight, I just want to rest and feel safe. He nodded, understanding that trust took time to grow. He was glad she felt safe enough to stay, even if only for one night. It was a small thing, but it meant a lot. To lighten the mood, he asked her about simple things. What she liked to eat, what music she enjoyed, and what made her happy. Nayeli laughed softly and said, I like the taste of wild berries and fresh water from the streams. I love the sound of birds singing in the morning, and I find happiness in small things, like a warm fire or a quiet moment under the stars. The man smiled, feeling a warm connection growing between them. Even though they came from very different worlds, they shared simple joys and hopes. For the first time, he realized how much people could learn from each other if they only took the time to listen. They talked for hours, sharing stories about their lives, their dreams, and the things that scared them. Nayeli told him about her journey, how she traveled across many places to find a safe spot to rest. She described the kindness of strangers who helped her and the challenges she faced along the way. The man listened closely, amazed by her courage. She had walked for miles through unknown lands with nothing but hope in her heart. It was hard to imagine doing something so brave. He felt a deep respect for her strength and determination. As the day turned into evening, they sat quietly together, watching the sunset outside the window. The sky changed colors, from bright blue to soft pink and then to deep purple. It was a beautiful sight, and the man felt peaceful. Nayeli reached into her small bag and pulled out a simple necklace, a small stone tied to a leather string. This was given to me by my grandmother, she said softly. She told me it would protect me and remind me of home. She handed it to the man. He took the necklace carefully, feeling its smooth surface. It was a small gift, but it carried so much meaning. He felt honored to hold something so personal. I will keep it safe, he promised, and I will remember you and your story. Nayeli smiled warmly. Thank you, she said. That means more than you know. As the night grew darker, they prepared for rest. The man made a small space for Nayeli to sleep comfortably. She thanked him quietly and settled down, her face calm and relaxed. Before he closed his eyes, the man thought about the strange and wonderful night they had shared. He realized that meeting Nayeli had opened a door to a world he had never known, a world of courage, tradition, and hope. The days that followed were unlike anything the man had ever experienced before. Though Nayeli had said she would stay only one night, her presence in his life had begun to feel more important with every passing hour. They spent time together learning from each other and discovering a connection that neither had expected. One morning, as the sunlight streamed through the window, the man noticed how quietly Nayeli moved around the small room. She carried herself with a grace that seemed natural and calm, as if she was part of the world outside, even in this unfamiliar place. He watched her carefully, wanting to understand more about her life and who she was beyond the story she had already shared. Nayeli began to talk about her daily life back home, the routine she followed, and the way her community worked together. In my village, everyone has a role, she explained. Some people are hunters, others gather plants, and some are teachers or healers. We all help each other, and we respect the wisdom of those who came before us. Her words painted a picture of a close-knit group where everyone belonged. The man found himself imagining the village, the small homes made from natural materials, the children playing freely outside, and the elders sharing stories by the fire. It was very different from his own world, where people often seemed busy and distant from one another. What was your favorite part of living there? He asked, curious to know what made her happiest. Nayeli smiled softly. I loved the evenings, she said. When the sun goes down and the stars come out, we gather with family and friends. We tell stories, sing songs, and remember those who have passed. It is a time of peace and connection. Her description made him wish he could see it for himself, the way the sky would light up with stars and the warmth of being surrounded by people who cared deeply for one another. It sounded like a world full of love and meaning. As they talked, the man shared his own life story. He spoke about growing up in the city, the challenges he faced, and the dreams he held. He told Nayeli about the noise and rush of everyday life, the busy streets, and the technology that surrounded him. Though their worlds were so different, he found comfort in opening up to someone who listened without judgment. Nayeli listened closely, her eyes kind and understanding. "Your world sounds very different from mine," she said quietly. "But it also sounds full of energy and opportunity." "Yes," he agreed. "Sometimes it is exciting, but other times it can feel lonely. People are often too busy to stop and talk or really know each other." Nayeli nodded. "That is why moments like this are important," she said, looking around the small room. "When two people from different paths meet and share their stories, it helps us understand and care for each other." The man felt warmth spread through his chest. He realized that despite their differences, they were building a bridge between two worlds. It was a special kind of friendship, one based on respect and curiosity. One afternoon, Nayeli took the man outside to a nearby park. The trees were tall and green, and the air was fresh with the scent of grass and flowers. It was a small piece of nature in the middle of the city, but to Nayeli, it felt like a connection to her homeland. They walked slowly together, the man watching how she looked at the plants and listened to the sounds of birds. She seemed to find comfort in the simple beauty around her. "Even in the city there is still life," she said softly. "We must remember to see it." As they sat on a bench, Nayeli began to teach him about some of the plants and their uses. She talked about how her people used herbs for healing and how every plant had a purpose. The man was amazed by her knowledge and how deeply she respected the natural world. "It is not just about medicine," she explained. "It is about honoring life and understanding the balance that holds everything together." The man realized how much he had taken for granted. In his busy life, he rarely thought about where his food came from or the plants growing around him. Nayeli's words opened his eyes to a new way of seeing the world, one that valued harmony and care. As the day turned to evening, they returned to the small room. The man felt grateful for the time they had spent outside and for the chance to learn something new. Nayeli's presence was like a quiet light in his life, showing him things he had never noticed before. That night they sat together again, sharing stories and dreams. Nayeli spoke about her hopes for the future, to find a place where she could live safely, to reconnect with her people, and to carry on the traditions that meant so much to her. The man shared his own hopes, for peace, for connection, and for meaning in a world that sometimes felt confusing. They realized they both wanted many of the same things, even though their journeys were so different. Their conversation was gentle and honest, filled with moments of laughter and silence. It was a rare gift to find someone who understood the deeper parts of themselves, and both of them treasured it. Before they slept, Nayeli took out the small stone necklace her grandmother had given her. She touched it gently and said, "This is a symbol of strength and protection. I carry it to remind me of where I come from and who I am." The man looked at her and smiled. "You are very strong," he said quietly. "And you have taught me a lot in just a few days." Nayeli returned his smile. "And you have given me hope." As the night wrapped around them, they both knew their time together was special. The man had opened his life to a stranger from a distant land, and in return, he had gained a friend and a new way of seeing the world. The peaceful days they shared were about to change. One afternoon, as the sun began to lower in the sky, Nayeli's face showed a flicker of worry for the first time since she arrived. The man noticed immediately. He had grown used to her calm and quiet presence, and seeing concern in her eyes made his heart tighten. They were sitting in the small room when Nayeli took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. "There are people looking for me. People who want to bring me back to a place I don't want to return." The man listened carefully, feeling the seriousness of her words. He didn't ask for details, knowing some things were too difficult to speak aloud. Instead, he reached out and held her hand gently, offering silent support. Nayeli looked at him gratefully. "I left my home to find safety," she continued. "But the danger followed me. I must be careful now. I cannot stay here for long." The man's mind raced. He wanted to protect her, but didn't know how. The world outside was full of unknown risks, and this woman who had come into his life so quietly now needed him to be strong. "We will figure this out together," he said firmly. "You are not alone." Nayeli smiled, the first real smile of hope since the news had arrived. "Thank you," she whispered. Over the next few days they made plans to keep Nayeli safe. The man helped her find new places to stay, places where she could rest and hide without fear. They talked about how to be cautious, how to avoid places where she might be seen, and how to trust only those who truly cared. Despite the danger, Nayeli remained calm. She showed a quiet courage that amazed the man. Her strength was not just in her words, but in the way she faced each day with determination. One evening, as they sat by the window watching the city lights, Nayeli told him more about what she had left behind. "Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you can become the ones who harm you," she said quietly. "That is why I ran away. But I have hope that kindness still exists." The man felt a deep sadness but also admiration. To leave everything familiar and face fear with courage was a choice many could not make. He asked, "What can I do to help?" "Just being here is enough," Nayeli said softly. "Your kindness gives me strength." The man realized that sometimes help was not about grand actions but small moments of care and trust. Being a friend, listening, and standing by her side mattered more than anything else. Together, they found small joys in the midst of uncertainty. They cooked simple meals, shared stories, and watched the stars at night. Each moment was precious, a reminder that even in hard times, life could hold beauty. One night, as they sat quietly, Nayeli placed her hand on the man's arm. "Thank you for giving me a place to rest," she said. "You have become like family to me." He smiled warmly. "And you have taught me what courage truly means." As the days passed, their bond grew stronger. They were no longer just two strangers sharing a room. They were friends connected by trust, hope, and the quiet promise of support. Though the threat still lingered, they faced it together, knowing that sometimes the greatest strength comes from standing beside someone when they need you most. The morning light was soft and warm when Nayeli quietly packed her few belongings. The man watched her, feeling a mix of emotions he hadn't expected to feel so deeply. The time had come for her to leave, just as she had promised when she first appeared in his room. Only this time, it felt harder to say goodbye. Nayeli looked around the small room that had been her shelter. It was no longer just a stranger's space. It had become a place of comfort, a small refuge in a world full of uncertainty. She smiled softly at the man. "Thank you for everything," she said simply, "for your kindness, your friendship, and the safe place you gave me." He smiled back, feeling the warmth of those words. "You are welcome any time," he replied. "You don't have to be alone." Nayeli nodded, but there was a quiet sadness in her eyes. She explained that she needed to continue her journey, to find a place where she could live without fear. But she promised that she would carry the memories of their time together in her heart, and maybe, one day, she would return. The man felt a lump in his throat. It was hard to imagine life without Nayeli's calm presence. She had brought something new and beautiful into his world, a connection that crossed cultures, distance, and fear. As she left, he gave her the small stone necklace she had once given him. "Keep this," he said softly. "Let it remind you that you are never truly alone." Nayeli took the necklace carefully and smiled. "And you keep this," she said, handing him a small feather tied with a leather string. "It is a symbol of freedom and hope." They embraced gently, a silent promise passing between them. Though their time together had been brief, it had changed both of their lives. After Nayeli walked out the door, the man sat down and thought about everything that had happened. He realized that sometimes life brings people together for a reason, even if only for a short time. Their meeting had opened his heart and mind to new possibilities, new understandings. Days turned into weeks, but the memory of Nayeli stayed with him. He found himself looking at the world differently, noticing the beauty in small things, feeling more connected to others, and holding on to hope even when things were hard. One evening, as he looked at the stars, he whispered a wish for Naeli's safety and happiness. He hoped she was finding the peace she deserved. Though they were apart, their story was not over. The man knew that sometimes the bonds we make with others can last a lifetime, even across great distances. And in his heart, he held on to the promise that one day the Apache woman who had come into his room would return, bringing with her the strength, courage, and hope that had forever changed his life.